Welcome to Oh Hell No with Nicole.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today, I have Jennifer Smith with me, sex therapist, marriage and family, and mental health therapist. Thank you for joining us today, Jennifer. How are you?
Thank you so much, Nicole, for having me. I'm doing well. I'm excited to get into a good discussion tonight.
Yes, I have a lot of questions for you, and I am very excited, and I can't wait to get into it. So let's get into it.
All right.
So first, tell us, how did you become a sex therapist?
My journey to become a sex therapist actually started when I was a sophomore in college. I was a communications major, and I worked at the local radio station, and it was called 96.1 WIUP FM. And one of the shows that was already established was called Love Lines, and it was ran by a guy, and they talked about love, sex, and relationships. Now, I just wanted to be, like, behind the scenes. I wanted to run the boards and, like, learn how to be an engineer. But he was like, no, if you're going to learn how to do all that, you have to be on air, too. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that. I was only 19 at the time, and I wasn't very confident. So he was like, well, if you want to be in the studio, that's what you have to do. So if you're interested, come back on Sunday night and pick a radio name. So I was like, okay, let me think about it. So I went home, I talked to my mom about it. I just told her the show was about dating and relationships. I left the sex part out of it. And so she helped me create a name, which was Mahogany. Because it was a late night show. It's kind of sexy. So I went back to the studio that night, and I fell completely in love with the content and being on the radio. And so I was on Love Lines as Mahogany for the next 3.5 years, and I became producer and host, and it just became like a lifestyle for me. Like, everybody knew me on campus as Mahogany and knew about the things that we talked about on the radio, and we talked about relationships and sex and STDs and sex toys and dating in college. I mean, there wasn't anything that was off topic.
Wow.
And then I eventually started hosting my own co-ed sex toy parties on campus. So, because back then, when I was in college, it was like the pure romance parties, and they were very big on for women. But I was like, if I'm telling women to use these toys with their partners, why don't we invite the partners to the parties? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So we had a rep that used to come to campus, and I said, well, when we do the parties, I want the men to be able to come. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's going to happen. So they did, and it turned out to be so awesome. The couples really loved it. They learned a lot, were educated about it. And then people used to start asking me to be seen. Like, they would ask me to counsel them in my dorm room.
Wow.
I was like, listen, I just give advice on the radio. I'm not a therapist, you know. At that point, I had no idea what I was doing. And but people just thought that I had a lot of good insight. So I would counsel couples in my dorm room, or, you know, at the hub or the student union, and it just took on a life of its own. So I like to say, like, the career, I didn't choose the career chose me.
Yeah, I love that. I wish that a career would have chose me a long time ago. It would have saved me a lot of headache. But I love that you decided to have the toy parties with the partners as well, because I have hosted a couple of, you know, sex parties, or I call them passion parties. And I always just have the women. And usually my husband is so like, oh my God, let me get out of here, whatever. But it would be nice to kind of have the guys around to kind of see the toys. But I think people get so embarrassed. And, you know, that's why I was so excited to do this show, because I want to ask you a lot of things that I think people want to ask and know and talk about, but they're just embarrassed to bring it up or even say those things, you know?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that was one of the things that I really loved about radio, was that people were able to be who they wanted to be when they called in. Sometimes people didn't use their real names; they used pseudonames, and I used a pseudonym.
Right.
And I got to. I mean, for a very long time, people didn't know that I was Mahogany, and I loved that because it was people really just focused on the content.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it's all about. Like we shouldn't have to feel embarrassed about asking a question. Like, we're here to provide knowledge and learn from each other all the time, no matter what the subject is.
Exactly.
And so I'm always so humbled when people feel comfortable enough to call me or email me questions about something that is very personal for them, because that shows that they really want to be better or be more educated about something. And I feel very fortunate to be in the position to be able to provide it to them.
Yes, and I think it's a very important part of our lives. So, thank you for being you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. But it took it wasn't always an easy journey. After I graduated school, like you said, like you wish the career would have chosen you. I mean, like it chose me, but I still didn't know that that's what I wanted to do. After I graduated college, I wrote a sex advice column for a magazine for 4 years called Genesis Magazine. It's based in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And I had to be forced into doing that. Just like I had to be forced into radio, I had to be forced into doing the magazine too, because I didn't know how to write. I wasn't a writer.
Right.
And so the way the owner of the magazine explained to me is like, it's everything you do on the radio, mm-hmm. but with words. And when I thought of that concept, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can.
Right.
And I did, and I fell in love with doing that too. And I think that sometimes, like, the things that the things that choose us, we're not always as accepting of, mm-hmm. of taking, accepting of it. Yes. We have to be kind of pushed into it sometimes. Yeah. And I'm very grateful to have had a lot of people in my life push me into some of the best opportunities I've ever had. So, I say that to say, like, for people who feel like they're not in the right career, maybe listen to what other people around you are telling you. Because mm-hmm. people always told me I was a good speaker, mm-hmm. and that people always like to come and talk to me, but I didn't think that would translate into being a therapist.
Right.
And then once I finally, after writing for the magazine for 4 years, I was like, okay, what am I doing with this career? Like, what do I want to do with it? And then that's when I decided I wanted to be a therapist.
Wow.
And then as soon as I came to that conclusion, people were like, duh, like, why? Of course you're going to be a therapist.
Right.
Like, we all knew that that's what you should have been, but I didn't know it. So, I moved to Miami in 2012, and I went to Barry University, and I got a double master's in marriage and family therapy and mental health. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, I went and got my sex therapy certification.
Awesome.
So that's how I've arrived to being here with you today.
Yes. So tell me, what do people usually go to a sex therapist for? Like, what are some of the things that would, bring someone into the office?
People come to see a sex therapist for intimacy issues in their relationship, or it could be a single individual that comes and is struggling to have intimacy in their dating relationships, or they might have been in an abusive relationship, or they've been sexually assaulted, and they're trying to process what's happened to them so that they can continue on to have healthy relationships moving forward. But I also get people that come in and they want to just spice up their relationship. They're totally happy in their relationship, but they want to learn some new tips and tricks to keep it fresh and sexy. People come for BDSM and kink, or people just come in because they're having communications problems, and that's translated into their sex life.
See, I never knew that.
Which happens a lot.
Yeah, I never knew that you could just go to a sex therapist just to like spice up your, your marriage or your sex life or whatever. Like, that's very interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think people get so wrapped up in the title of sex therapist, mm-hmm. they don't look beyond that.
Right.
It's an umbrella title. There's a lot of things that we do that is relational.
Right.
Sex is one part of the relationship, but there's a whole bunch of other things that go along with it. You know, communication, I would say, is probably the number one thing I see as a therapist, not just sex therapist, but like across the board, is communication. People lack that, and then that translates all throughout the relationship. If you don't have the communication, you don't have the trust, or you don't have the honesty. People don't want to be intimate if they don't feel like they can communicate with you. If you can't communicate, you can't communicate what kind of lover you want or what kind of lover you're going to be either. So, I mean, like, communication, I would say, is the source of a lot of reasons why people end up coming to therapy.
Yeah, I agree. Communication is very important. What are your thoughts on sex addiction and porn addiction and stuff like that? Like, a lot of times we see in the news when people get caught cheating on their, you know, spouse or whatever, that, oh, they're suffering from sex addiction. And I've also heard some other sex therapists say that that's not really a valid term, you know. So how do you feel about that?
I hate when they use sex addiction as an excuse for their behavior. I don't believe, like, I know that Tiger Woods, they've used him, and now with Harry Weinstein, they've used it with him as well. They're sex addicts, and I would not diagnose them as that. I think that is a PR cover for them. Sex addicts are no different than drug addicts or people that are addicted to gambling or sex. Or eating disorders, or shopping. You know, there's a lot of different forms of addictions, and sex addiction is the same as all those ones I just named. It's mismanagement of life. Right. You can't function without having sex. I mean, to the point of that people would have, you know, they're having sex with strangers, or sex with people that at your job or at your child's school. Or it's an urge that is bigger than them. And they continue to have sex to fulfill that urge, but that doesn't mean that they're getting pleasure from every single time they have it. Right. You know? And so a lot of people don't understand that. Some people are very ignorant and say, I would love to have that addiction. Well, no, you wouldn't. Not if you kept getting fired from your job because you had to keep missing work because you were too busy going out and having sex. Or you were having sex on the job and you were getting fired. Right. You know, or your relationship, your marriage is falling apart because you're going outside of your marriage now seeking sex. So you don't wish that for anybody, you know? Like, yeah, you just don't.
Absolutely not. That sounds very serious, and I would not want to have that problem. So, no. Yeah, no. So what do you think about if women, like, one time I was listening to this sex podcast, and a girl called in, and I think she was saying she, you know, had sex a lot, and she would just hook up with random people. She didn't, you know, like, whatever. And the person was kind of giving her advice, kind of like, it's okay that you're doing that. You know, that's fine. If you're, you know, just having sex or whatever, that we should be free to just, like, have sex with whoever we want to, if that's what we want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But what do you think? Do you think it's okay? Like, if you have a friend that's really promiscuous, do you think that maybe that's just her nature and it's okay to be really promiscuous? Or do you think that maybe there's an underlying issue? Or how do you feel? Like, have you ever had anybody that, you know, in your life that, you know, that is really promiscuous, like random dudes? Oh, I went to the club and I hooked up with this dude, I don't even know his name, whatever, like, all the time. Do you think that that's normal behavior, and is it okay?
I think that there's two different kinds of people when it comes to that. I think that some people, that's just how they are, and they're very comfortable with that. And then there's somebody who has very low self-esteem or low self-worth. Okay. And that is the underlying reason of why they would participate in those behaviors. I certainly know those two kinds of people, and that's what I've seen most of. You know, I have a lot of clients that are like that have low self-esteem. And so that's why they continue to hook up, because there's no emotion behind it. They're pretty numb, emotionally, physically, mentally. They're just numb. Okay. So they're just participating in those acts just to have a way to connect with somebody. But afterwards, they feel worse than what they did before. And most of the time that stems from them being sexually assaulted at some point in their life, or some type of abuse or something traumatic that happened to them.
Okay.
That's what I've seen. On the other side, there are just people that enjoy just hooking up casually.
Mm-hmm.
They're not into monogamous relationships, and they're just okay with just something very casual. I've seen that a lot, especially since I've lived in Miami. And that's just what people do. And if that's what people want to do, then they're entitled to do that. I just encourage people to be safe always by using protection and getting their STD screening.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
Yes, that's important. So I want to talk about unhealthy, sexual relationships within a marriage, outside of a marriage. I just want you to kind of give us like a little bit of a guideline for like how to know when something's like unhealthy. Because I think sometimes people might not know certain things. So, like in your marriage, is there anything that would indicate that you're in an unhealthy sexual relationship with your husband?
One, I think if you're unhappy,
mm-hmm.
and you've been unhappy for a long period of time, I would say that you need to evaluate if you are in a healthy marriage or relationship. Certainly, your relationship, you're not going to be happy all the time, but you should be happy most of the time.
Right.
If you find yourself being miserable in that relationship, then you have to reevaluate what's happened and what's happening moving forward. What are you going to do about it, or what are the two of you going to do about it? Two, I would say, in the sexual way, if the relationship is unhealthy, I have found over the years that a lot of women don't know that they are allowed to reject sex from their husbands. I have found that spousal rape is a real thing, and it's a very serious thing that enough married women are not talking about. And that is unhealthy. If your partner is forcing you to have sex and you don't want to, that is still rape. And it's spousal rape. And you are entitled to report it if you are not wanting to engage in those acts.
Right.
If you're being abused in any way, that is unhealthy. You should not have to tolerate any type of verbal, emotional, psychological, or physical or sexual abuse from your partner. That's not what a relationship or marriage is to be about. So I would say that's completely unhealthy. If you feel like you're being abused, seek out a friend, call the abuse hotline, and let somebody know that you need help to get out.
Absolutely.
I think those are the most important things about being in an unhealthy relationship. I think a lot of people don't listen to their gut instinct,
mm-hmm.
and that's why it's there, is for you to be able to. Your body tells you when something feels good and when it doesn't. And I think if you have been ignoring your gut instinct for a long time, see what happens when you listen to it.
Yep.
Because it's going to let you know when you're in an unhappy place.
Absolutely.
And I would encourage people to listen to it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great advice, because you never know what people are going through. And it's just good to hear someone, who deals with these issues every day to, reconfirm what's healthy and what's not.
Right. And another common trend I see with unhealthy relationships is the minute that you have to justify somebody else's actions,
mm-hmm.
you know that that's an unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy situation. The minute that you have to lie or justify to somebody else about what your partner did or is doing,
mm-hmm.
you know that that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to do something like that. You should always feel confident and secure in your relationship. And that's even something I've had to learn personally. I've been in unhealthy relationships before, and every time I had to justify my partner's behavior, I kept thinking to myself, you don't need to be in this relationship. If you have to continue to lie about what he's really doing, you don't need to be here.
Yep.
Without, and I had to learn that myself, that those are the kind of relationships you just, I don't need to be in.
Yeah, you avoid those. And like you said, your gut is always going to tell you,
Yes.
the signs are there. So you just have to be strong enough to pay attention to those things and, make a good decision for yourself. So I totally agree.
Absolutely.
All right. So now we're going to segue into, some questions for moms. I'm a mom.
Okay.
I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I have friends with children, and we're always wondering, when should we start talking to our children about sex? When should we tell them boys have penises, girls have vaginas? Well, you probably start with your kid first, like whatever you have. If you have a boy or girl, you tell them what that is, but you kind of stay away from what the other sex has. I don't know, you just get nervous about talking about that. So when is the right time to really talk to them about, different things?
You start talking to kids about sex age appropriately. Like, the sex conversation should be an evolving conversation. So, age appropriately, you will tell them different things about sex.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that, yes, the kids should know their proper names for their body parts. It should be penis and vagina. Because if someone unfortunately was to touch your child in that area and you had a nickname for it, and the child goes to tell their teacher that so-and-so touched, my cupcake or my
right.
pocketbook or whatever,
yeah.
the teacher's not going to know what they're talking about. And unfortunately, I've seen that happen, is that kids have reported that someone's touched their genitals, but the police didn't know what the nicknames were.
Yeah.
So it went unreported for a long period of time, which just exposed the child to be molested even longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell, and you should tell your child what their body part is and what the opposite sex's body part is. Because if little Johnny shows your daughter his penis, she's going to be like, what is that? I have a vagina and my part doesn't stick out like his.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have these conversations because kids are going to talk and show each other body parts, and they need to know what the proper names are and, what boys' parts are for and what girls' parts are for. But you should, even when they're, potty training, you teach them their body parts and that pee comes out and where the poop comes out. And that's as far as it goes for, like, potty training age. But as they get older, you start explaining more. Now, your daughter's 8. We're in a different time of technology.
I know.
So if she has a phone or an iPad, she has access to a lot more things than what you and I had.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to have the conversation of, do you like boys? How do you feel about boys? What do they say to you at school? How do you approach them? It's even more about the sex talk. It's a lot about just how to handle yourself with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
And, how do they talk to you? What is chivalry? What's appropriate touching at every age? And I do believe that at every age you have to have conversation about what is appropriate touching.
Mm-hmm.
So that kids are aware of only mom, dad, grandma, the doctor, and whoever, these are the only people that are allowed to touch me.
Right.
Or these are the only people that are allowed to see me with no clothes on. You have to be willing to have those conversations because a lot of things are happening in our society, and so many parents have been afraid to have those conversations, but maybe if they would have had those conversations, kids would have felt more comfortable reporting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it was happening.
Yeah, that's really important. So what do you think about as your child gets a little bit older and they get into that teenage age, what do you think about masturbation? Because I was listening to something and they were saying that maybe you should tell your kids about masturbation because maybe they wouldn't be in such a rush to, have sex if they know that they can pleasure themselves. I mean, boys kind of figure it out probably a little bit quicker. I don't know. Like
I'm a huge advocate for, like when you think about the sex education talk that you received or maybe didn't receive either from school or from your parents, They never talk about orgasms, and they never talk about masturbation.
No, never.
And masturbation, I'm not really sure why they don't talk about it, because I totally agree. If kids were learning about how to self-pleasure themselves, then they wouldn't be rushing out to have sex with each other.
Yeah.
So, it's safe. They could do it at home. It's appropriate. It's something you're going to do as an adult. Why not do it when you're younger? You actually get to learn your body better that way.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge advocate about teaching that. Now, I know that a lot of parents are going to feel uncomfortable to give that talk. A lot of parents don't even want to give the sex talk,
right,
let alone the masturbation talk. But it is really important to educate your kids about it, because otherwise you're allowing movies and TV and porn and friends and a whole bunch of other crazy other ways they're going to receive information. Wouldn't you rather them receive the proper information from you?
Yes,
and kids are very receptive to receiving the information, but I just find that a lot of parents just don't want to give it because it makes them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But this is part of being a parent. You have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations, but at least you're walking away knowing that your child is properly informed, they're going to be able to be safe, and they know what's appropriate.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge advocate for masturbation because it helps cut down on teen pregnancy and STDs, and it probably would prolong kids having sex too early. So
right.
I'm a huge advocate for teaching and talking to your teenager about masturbation.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea too. So now we move into the birth control conversation. So my husband feels like, he said, well, as soon as she gets to the age where she's getting her period, I think that we should put her on birth control just because we know what could happen, And I'm like, oh, really? Do you really think we need to do that? I don't. So I'm just like, do you feel like that's like encouraging, like, here's birth control, go out there and do it? Or is it maybe helping them to protect themselves from pregnancy? I mean, that doesn't substitute, condoms and things like that, but just another layer of protection. What do you think about that when girls get to that age?
Well, I think it's so funny that your husband's the one that brought it up, because most of the time it's the mom, not dad.
Know.
Dad's like, hell no, she ain't going on birth control.
Right, I was shocked.
I think that, one, in puberty, when girls get their periods, a lot of times the gynecologist or the pediatrician, rather, would recommend birth control as a way to help make their cramps better.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even as a young girl, you have to explain the responsibility that comes with birth control. If she's not sexually ready to be a sexual person, then when you say birth control to her, she's going to be freaked out.
Right.
That's a lie, it's going to be like, what? I'm taking birth control? Does that mean I can have a baby?
Right.
You have to be willing to have another form of the evolving sexual conversation. You have to have another one when a girl gets her period, because that's a whole nother ball game now, right? Because she's ovulating. So you have to be willing to explain to her now the other things that are happening with her body, what's going to be happening with her vagina, the responsibilities that come with having your period every month, and how to be safe and just cleanly and hygiene, appropriate. But you have to explain what birth control is and the responsibilities that comes with it. And that now, if she was to become sexually active, all the responsibilities that come with having sex. So, you have to be prepared to continue to have that conversation. It's not just like, yeah, you're getting on birth control, but now you have to explain all these other factors that come in with birth control, as well as her body changing. And I think that is a conversation that you should have with the doctor first,
mm-hmm.
and then involve your daughter in the conversation. The child should always be a part of the conversation about what's happening with their body.
Yeah.
You're the parent. Yes, you get to make the ultimate decision, but it's their body. It's their responsibility to do it, to take the pills and make sure that they're monitoring it. Or birth control is so different now. I mean, they could very well be getting the shot or the implant in the arm, or, however they're getting their form of birth control. But you have to involve your child in those conversations. Otherwise, she's not going to know what's going to happen if she misses a couple of days of taking it. You know, like, you have to be willing to include them in those very important decisions. But I think that every family is different, but I think that you have the parents have to be willing to have conversations about what they think is going to be best before then bringing it to the child. Because if you're both on two different sides of what you think will be right, that's just going to cause more confusion for the child.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's good to have these conversations with your kids, you know, and make them feel like they're a part of it, because like you said, it is their body. And as they get older, they're going to be the ones that's in control of it. So I think that's awesome advice. What do you think about the HPV shot? Do you think that it's something that we should explore as, you know, parents? Because it's all over the news and the commercials are pretty scary with the kid like, did you know, Mom? Did you know I could get cancer? Like, what? So, what do you know? Do you think we should definitely discuss it with the, you know, doctors and make sure we read up on it and possibly do it?
Absolutely. HPV is becoming something that's more susceptible to get now than even like chlamydia or gonorrhea. So
But what exactly is HPV? Like, what is it like an STD? Like, what?
It is an STD. You can only get it sexually.
Okay.
And there's not like real symptoms to it. It's something that you would be tested for, like at the doctor, mainly the gynecologist.
Yeah.
So I think that it is worth having a conversation about with your gynecologist, or, you know, at your pediatrician, I guess, if you have a child. I think you definitely should talk to your doctor first. Let them talk to you about the risks of taking it, not taking it, what it would prevent. Get all the information you can. You can always look up information, but I think you should always consult your doctor about what you think is best for your health and what your child's health is, and then move forward. I mean, I had it shot, I don't remember, probably like when I was a teenager. I don't remember if I was in college or like high school, but I do remember getting it.
Oh, okay.
And even now, I still talk to my gynecologist about it, you know, how it's evolved, even in, you know, over the years, how it's evolved. So I think it's definitely something you should be talking to your children about, as well as all the other STDs that they can contract.
Yeah.
And then also consulting your doctor.
Okay. So do you know what the age is when you start going to the OBGYN as a young woman? Because I don't remember when I started going to the OBGYN.
Well, I guess it's different for everybody. I mean, if your child is becoming sexually active, I would think that's probably when you start taking them. But for some people, it's different. I didn't start going until I was in college, till I was 18.
Oh, okay.
That's when I started going. But for some girls, I know they went younger. I guess it just depends on when they're becoming sexually active. I mean, that's also something you would consult your pediatrician about.
Yeah.
Is, you know, when do they think your child would be ready to go? But typically, it's usually when you're 18, I believe, because that's when you stop seeing your pediatrician and start seeing. Yeah, that's when you stop seeing your pediatrician. So then you're ready for the big time doctor.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. Like when you start getting your first pap smear and stuff like that. Because now with health, you know, health issues, it seems like younger people are getting stuff that we used to see older people get, you know? So it's just so crazy. Like you have to be on top of everything to make sure that you're not getting cervical cancer or this cancer or that. You know, it's just so crazy. So I'm paranoid though, so...
Right, and certainly if you have a family history of different things like that, then you would probably go to the doctor earlier for certain things.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's why you'd want to consult your doctor if you have a family history of some type of, you know, pancreatic cancer or uterine cancer or something like that, or prostate. Like, you would probably go to the urologist or the gynecologist sooner than most people.
Right.
But that's something you'd want to consult with your doctor about.
Right. Okay. So parents, consult with your doctors and figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about my favorite topic, lubricants. I love lube.
Yay!
They
Lube
feel
is your
so
friend,
great.
people. Lube is your friend.
Yes, please dispel the rumor that if you use lubes, you're dry as the Sahara Desert, because that is false. Okay? Lies. So
No, lube is your friend. I'm not really sure where the shame or stigma came that, like, if you use lube, like, your vagina is bad. Like, I don't really know where that came from, but lubricant is made to provide pleasure for you and your partner.
Right.
So why not use it? You don't need to use a lot. You need to use a dime's worth, maybe, of lube, and you can put it right inside on your fingers and rub it right inside your vagina, or you can just squeeze it in your vagina. You can put it on top of the penis, or a dildo, or a strap-on, or whatever you're using. And it's made to make things easier. It makes everything glide a lot smoother. You're not tearing anything. You're not feeling uncomfortable, any discomfort. It's not hurting.
Right.
It's all there for good reasons.
And
So,
it's good for
lube is your
foreplay,
friend.
right? I mean,
Yes. There's all different kinds. I mean, you certainly want to be safe, so you can use a water-based lube, which are the best and the best kinds for your vagina, because it feels like a natural wetness. And but they have some that are flavored, which you have to be careful about also, because the flavored ones contain sugar. So you're kind of putting sugar in your vagina. So if you use a lube that is like a flavor, then you have to, like, take a shower and clean yourself afterwards, so that none of that stuff is laying in there. Some of them you can blow on it, and it gets hotter.
Yup.
And then there's all different kinds of lubes, and they're awesome. There's so many different brands at the store, or you can order them online. I actually am a brand ambassador for Silk lubricant, and they've been around many years, and I love them, and people hit me up all the time for samples. So if you're interested, hit me up, and I can hook you up with some samples.
Yes, I need
but
some.
yeah, lube is a great thing, and it's mandatory if you're going to be doing anal sex.
Yeah.
You have to use lubricant if you're going to have anal sex. So I'm totally an advocate for it. There's no reason why you can't use it.
So let's get into anal. So, I mean, I don't know. My biggest question is anal dangerous? Can you lose something back there from doing too much anal? Or I have a friend who, like, loves anal, and I'm always like, girl, are you crazy? Like, aren't you worried, like, it's not gonna get back right or something? Like, I'm just paranoid, and I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so please educate me. Is anal sex safe?
It is safe. Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is safe. People still wear condom when they do anal. You can, obviously, when you're having anal, a lot of people, you have to gauge what is comfortable for you. If it's your first time, if you're a beginner, you want to make sure that your partner is listening to you and not being too rough or not, so aggressive. You have to take it easy. But that's why you use a lot of lubricant, to make it easier and make it just glide right on in there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people love it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody has what they like, you know. And
I'm not anal shaming, guys.
Sharing that with you, because a lot of women won't share that they actually enjoy anal.
Yeah, I don't.
Because of the stigma and shame that comes from other women when you tell them that.
Yeah, no, I don't anal shame. I'm not like, if that's what you're into, more power to you. I'm not going to judge you or whatever. I don't have any problems with it. What did I want to ask you? Oh, I heard on this other podcast I was listening to about poppers, and someone called in and said that he used poppers or something before he had anal sex. What exactly are poppers? Do you know what those are?
I've never heard of them referred to as poppers, but I'm thinking they're probably similar to like butt plugs.
No, this one, they said it was a relaxing, something that you take that relaxes you, so that you can, get that first half over with. It relaxes your body or something. It's kind of like similar to glue, like smelling glue or something. But I've never used that, heard of that. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all. But I mean, there's a lot of different things that people use to relax their body.
Right.
But they just, they can't do it on their own. So they have stuff that helps just relax you and relax your anus, and that's fine. People have to do what they need to do to make themselves relax and make the experience enjoyable. I certainly say if you don't enjoy it, let your partner know so that you can stop. Don't continue on doing something if it doesn't make you feel comfortable.
Right. And you were about to talk about butt plugs. What are butt plugs for people who don't know what butt plugs are?
I wish I could show you a picture of what they look like. Butt plugs are something that people use for anal. Some people like to just wear them. I actually know people that have different sizes and styles that you can wear, and they're stimulating to wear.
They wear them all day?
It helps open them up a little more before having anal. So it's easier to wear it for a while because it will help open you up. So then it's not as uncomfortable when you're having anal later.
So you could be at work with a butt plug in.
Yeah.
Just getting ready for later.
Yeah.
Okay.
People do it all the time. You just never know what somebody got going on.
I like the ball that you put up there to keep the tighten whatever. But
the Kegel ball?
Yeah, the Kegel balls. But yeah, those are a little. I can't use those too much because I can't leave the house with them because they're just very sensitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, people. I mean, you just never know when somebody got them up there too, just trying to strengthen their vagina for later.
Right. That's so funny.
It's funny, but people have to work at having a sex life, and making it a priority to want to pleasure their partners, and I think that that's a great thing that people even want to be that kind of lover to their partner, that they would go to those lengths to be able to do those things. I think that says a lot about how you are and how in tune you are with pleasing your partner. So I applaud people that go the extra mile to work at being a good lover for their partners.
Absolutely. I agree. So let's talk about some oral stuff. So now this has been like a trend. Like everywhere I go, I'm hearing about this booty eating and all this stuff. Like I'm hearing it on the internet, seeing it on the internet, hearing it on podcasts. Everybody's talking about this. What is the craze with this? Like, I would feel like it's a little, look, I'm going to use the word dangerous again. just because.
I think it's not really, I mean, it's been happening a long time. I think now because of songs that have come out recently is it's more socially acceptable. People are just now talking about it more publicly, but people have always been licking and eating butt for a long time. So,
but people are just so open with it now. Like they're on the radio. Like, yeah, I do that. I'll eat that butt. Yeah, that's what I do. And I'm like, what? Oh my God, that does not sound good.
Right. I mean, yeah, people. It's been something that people have been doing a long time. But I think now, just like a lot of things, it's just now becoming more socially acceptable and people are just willing to put it out there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I do that too." It's now normalized. I would say that.
Right.
Before, it was something that was very discreetly talked about, but now it's more normalized because it's been put out there socially.
So some tips for that is probably you want to make sure that you wash before you do that.
Yes.
People.
Yes, you want to be cleanly. You want to, and I say that about anything though.
Yeah, anything.
Whether anything that you're going to do sexually, whether it's orally or intercourse or with your hands, mouth, everything, you should clean everything.
Yes.
That's the best thing.
You might want to ask permission. You don't want to just,
Right. Right. Some people like to ask permission. Sometimes you can kind of lead up to that. You might be just kissing and licking around that area, and the closer you get, you can just ask your partner, like, is this okay? Do you like this? Can I get a little closer? Like, you kind of gauge it out with them and see, like, how they feel about it.
Right.
And if they like it, you continue to do it. If they don't, you tell them to let you know if they don't,
Right.
you know? But that's another form of communication, like I said before, that you have to have with your partner. Like, when you're going to try new things in the bedroom, you have to be willing to have the conversation before it happens, because the last thing you want to do is be surprised by somebody like that, especially when you're doing, like, anal, too. Like, you need to have a conversation about it before it happens, because sometimes you don't want somebody to be totally surprised, and then they think that you're trying to assault them.
Right.
And you want to have conversations about things like that maybe is something way outside of that person's element. That's really important.
So
but oral, I think people, I have found that a lot of women hate giving head. And so I found that when I've talked to them about the reasons why they hate giving head, it's because they've had, like, a bad experience with somebody before, or that's also something that they just don't know how to do because nobody talked to them about it. That wasn't part of their sex education, which I think should be part of sex education, about how to give head properly, men and women.
Yeah.
And so women, it's kind of awesome because now there's, like, so many videos online that teach you how to give a proper blowjob. I actually have a friend in Pittsburgh that teaches blowjob classes.
Wow.
So which is amazing. I'm going to have her in Miami for the next few months teaching classes here.
That's awesome.
So I'm, like, super excited about that she's able to do that, because so many women want to be able to learn how to give a good blowjob, but they don't know how, and their friends are too ashamed to even tell them, or they're not doing it. So it's like, well, where do you go for this information? Because watching porn is an unrealistic teacher.
Right.
You can't just, you're not going to be at that level instantly.
Right.
So you have to work at it. It's going to take some practice. It's going to take a good partner that's going to be patient with you. So I tell my ladies to take a class if you can, research one online. There are other teachable videos that you can watch about how to give head. There are also lubricants for your throat. There are different products that you can take that are like numbing sprays for your throat that will help you relax your gag reflex, so that you are able to give head without gagging, or that if you're an advanced blowjob giver, then you could deep throat. And being able to have those kind of sprays help you deep throat because it numbs your throat.
Right.
So I'm all for women finding different ways to be able to, give a proper blowjob to their man, if that's what they choose to do, or if that's what their man even likes.
Absolutely. So. And while we're on the topic of blowjobs, is it safe to swallow semen?
Yes.
Okay. Because every time I see this one episode of The Real Housewives, and Candy will say, "Oh, well, I heard that Little Kim had to get her stomach pumped because she swallowed too many." And I just laugh at that, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, can you swallow too much, or is this safe? Is it okay?" Like, just wondering.
I deal with the fact. First of all, Lil' Kim never said that, so I'm like, I deal with the fact.
Yeah, I don't think that really happened.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to deal with what actually really happened. If she didn't say it, then we can't say anything about it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know anyone that's ever said that they swallow too much. Like,
right.
I'm gonna say that it's safe. Don't quote me on that. I mean,
right.
Maybe consult your doctor again and see what they say. But it is safe. There's not been any studies proven that it's not safe to swallow. Right. I know a lot of women don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really up to your preference if you choose to or not. I know a lot of guys will ask their women to do it, and that's another thing. Like, if you feel uncomfortable with it and you really don't want to, don't do it. Or maybe you could, you just contain it in your mouth and you spit it out.
Right.
You don't have to swallow it. there's different ways around it, and you guys have to just negotiate and compromise. You're like, listen, I just can't do that. It doesn't feel good for me. It makes me feel uncomfortable, but I'm willing to let you come on me somewhere else, or do something else. Like people have to be willing to compromise on what they feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's good advice. So what I wanted to ask you is, what are some ways that you can spice up your love life, or, romantic sex life in the bedroom, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, or if you're married, or, what are some ways that you can bring it back to life, or, bring something new in? What's the best way?
I think sometimes the best way is to not have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to the basics. You go back to what was fun in the beginning of your relationship. Like most people, when they talk about the best sex of the relationship, it happened in the beginning.
Yeah, that's
because
so
you
true.
were just getting to know each other. You're just getting to know each other's bodies. You're like in love with the sex, and so like go back to what was great then about it. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be anything so monumental. Sometimes it's just simple, whether it's all the places that you used to have sex, or how many more times a day or a week you had it.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it's just that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just having more of it. Not that it's bleak or bland when you're having it. It's just that you're not having enough of it.
Yeah, usually that's the case. I think, because you're working, you have kids, you have so many responsibilities, and then you start to, lack in that area because everybody's tired, whatever, but you got to make time for it.
You got to make it a priority. This is part of your relationship, and you have, the more sex you're having in your relationship, really the less stress you're having between the two of you. Like you're connecting, you're keeping it physical, you're connecting with one another, you're spending time together. Like a lot of things become very minor when you're still connected to your partner.
Absolutely.
I always tell people that, like, when you're in an argument, find a reason to touch your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just extending one hand out and touching their shoulder, or putting a hand on their back or their heart. Like, just connecting takes all of the energy out of the argument.
Oh,
You're
I
able
love
to, like,
that.
bring it back down and have a normal conversation again.
I like that. I'm going to try that. I hope my husband doesn't look at me like, what the hell are you doing? I'm going to say, Jan told me to do it.
Right. It changes the energy considerably.
Yeah.
But to get back to your original question, I mean, sometimes you just got to go back to the basics of what was good in our relationship, or in different times of our sexual life. What did we really enjoy about it? And let's pump that up a little bit,
Right.
Or let's increase the number of times we have sex a week. Or just making a date night a priority where you go out and do something,
Yeah.
And spicing it up too, I think, and a lot of times when people have been together a long time, they get comfortable being in a routine and they forget about doing the things that really their partner enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your partner enjoys seeing you in lingerie, then just wear lingerie to cook dinner that night. Like wear dinner when that person get home from work.
Right.
Like do with, if they love a certain perfume or cologne, put that on.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever that person really, everybody knows what their partner enjoys the most.
Yeah.
So do that. Do that again. Remind them, let them know that they're special to you. You have to remind, that's why people get motivated to do different things in relationships, is when you feel special.
Yes, absolutely.
So you have to continue to do things to make that person feel special,
Yes.
If you haven't cooked his favorite dinner in 2 months, cook him his favorite dinner, Like, go, if he wants to watch the game, then watch the game with him. Like, whatever it is that makes that person feel special, do that. And all the other things usually will follow. And then have a conversation of, like, I really enjoy where we're at, but I'd like to see what else we could do to add into our relationship, to add to it, to make it even better.
Yep.
And so don't be afraid to ask your partner, like, are you happy with the way everything's going in our sexual relationship? And if not, what can we do to improve it?
Yep. Communication, back to that. So
absolutely.
So what do you think about threesomes in a marriage? Do you think that's ever a good idea?
I think it works for some people, and some people I think it's a absolute disaster.
Yeah.
You have to be in a really solid relationship, a good trusting one, and you have to be willing to have a lot of conversations about why you're having a threesome, why you're seeking it out, and what are the rules of how are we going to pick this person. Are we going or not going to communicate with them after? Is this going to be a one-time deal? Are we going to have more? Are we going to use protection? Is it going to be someone we know? Is it going to be a stranger? Like, you have to have a lot of conversations about this before it even happens. And set the rules and boundaries, because there needs to be some, because this is your relationship that you're now asking somebody else to participate in.
Yeah.
And that's a very serious thing. A lot of people just go off the cusp of, we're going to do this one-time thing, and then they find out that their partner has secretly been having sex with this person behind their back.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, wait, I thought it was supposed to be this one-time thing. Like, you have to be willing to have those conversations, and you do take the risk that you're now allowing somebody else into your relationship. Even if it is temporary, you're still opening yourself up to a door that you might not be ready for.
Yep, I agree.
So I think for some people, I know a lot of couples that are swingers, or have open marriages, and they have threesomes, and it works for them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And then some other people I know that have tried it, and it backfires for their relationship. So you have to be willing to be prepared for it. If your relationship is not solid, it's already on crack foundation, and you're having a threesome as a Band-Aid to, like, make your partner happy, the relationship's pretty much going to crumble after that.
Yeah.
But if you're going in with clear intentions and you have a solid relationship and you're doing it as something that acting out a fantasy that maybe both of you have, then I say go for it. But you have to really be willing to communicate about it before it actually happens.
Right. I agree. Honey, we are not having a threesome, just in case you listen back to this podcast. Hell to the no. Okay? So, all right. So I wanted to ask you, because you are a sex therapist, are you really good at having sex? Is it really good for you? Because you know all this stuff.
I know a lot about sex. I don't think. I think there's always more that I could learn and become better at. At sex. I strive to be the best lover I can be when I'm in a relationship and have a consistent partner, for sure. I think I'm really good at certain things, not everything. I have my limitations too, even though I talk about sex and I speak a lot about it, at women empowerment events and on the radio, and there's still things that I have my limits with. I'm not into anal at all. That's not my thing.
Right.
But I've been complimented on my writing skills a time or two, and like I said, I have a friend who's a blowjob expert, so therefore I had first class teaching on how to give good blowjobs. So I would like to think I'm really good at those things.
Yeah. So do you find that it's a little intimidating for men sometimes when they find out what you do? Do they feel like, do you think it kind of puts them off a little bit the first time that they get into that, with you, when you get into a relationship or whatever? Do you find that they're a little bit nervous or anything? Or do you think they're really trying to, like, yeah, I'm going to put it down on her. She thinks she's a sex therapist. How is that for you?
Both.
Okay.
Guys that are totally intimidated, that don't even want to have sex with me or even date me because, one, they don't believe in therapy, so they don't want to date a therapist. Let alone someone who talks about sex. Like, they're like, oh, no. I've had guys admit that they're lazy lovers. Or that they're like, listen, I know that my dick's not that big, so I just rather not even have sex with you. And I'm like, wow, that's really honest.
Right.
And I kind of feel bad in a way because I'm like, I don't come across like I need this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't put that on somebody, so it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's the opposite. I get guys that immediately, as soon as they find out what I do, they're like all about it. They're like, oh yes, I'm trying to take this down.
Right.
Like I'm trying to, and he'll get this badge of honor that I took down a sex therapist.
Oh, Lord.
You know, or they want me to teach them something, or they want me to be able to say, oh yeah, like he knows what he's doing, or you know, like, so it's hard because I get both.
Yeah.
And neither one are very fun areas to be in.
Yeah.
So it's like I got to pick from the shades of gray area. Someone who's likes me for me and you know is okay with all the other stuff. It takes a real confident guy to be in my life to handle what I do, because this is who I am and this is my job and I'm going to be doing this forever. So somebody has to be very confident knowing that I'm going to talk about sex and I talk about personal experiences and, you know, I'm going to talk about past experiences because those are all what have helped me be able to relate to my clients and relate to people I talk to and people I write for, you know, so I'm always going to share those experiences, and sometimes that's not always been most comfortable for the people I've been in relationships with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to ask you to share one of your oh hell no sexual experiences with us, something that happened that made you say, oh hell no, I got to get the hell up out of here, or
I was dating this guy who coincidentally was actually in an open relationship. He was in an open relationship, and I thought it would be really interesting to go on a couple of dates with somebody that was already in a relationship. I've never had dated someone like that before. But when we met each other, him and his girlfriend were together, and they approached me and they explained about their open relationship, and then she walked away and let us have our conversation. So we went on several dates, and one night he came over and he had this box for me. And I was like, oh, you got me a present? And he was like, well, it's a present for you and for me. And I was like, oh, man, like, what the heck did he get me? And it was like a modern day chastity belt.
oh my God.
But it was for men.
Mm.
And they now call it like a penis lock. And it was a lock that went around his penis and his balls. And so what would happen is, like, he wanted to wear it and I would hold the key, which then gave me the dominant role to control when he could have sex.
Oh, Lord.
So not only we had never had sex, but he liked that I was like more dominant than him, so he wanted me to have that control, but I also controlled when he had sex with his girlfriend.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, this is way too freaky and too kinky and, like, too much control for me to have over somebody else.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't think I could do this. I was like, I don't think we can go out anymore. And I gave him the box back. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, oh, hell no. I can't. There's a lot of things I'm willing to do, but this ain't one of them.
Yeah, that's a little crazy. And it's interesting that he wanted you to have that and not his girlfriend. That's interesting.
Right. Exactly. But they were very much into fetishes. And so they were very much into dominant and submissive roles. And he was always a dom, and he never met a woman that he found that could be dominant over him until he met me.
Wow.
So he liked that that's why he wanted to give me the control. And I honestly was afraid to have that much control over somebody. I was afraid I might like it too much. I was like, I don't know. This might be too much for me because I might like it, and this lock might never come off. I don't know. Like, I was just like, this is too much.
Well, at least you know yourself.
I ended up stop dating him, and I run into him every once in a while, and every time I see him, I think immediately of that penis lock, and I just laugh about it.
That's too funny. So my last question, this is my bonus question. I always wonder because, as we're getting older, I worry about, will I still be able to have sex when I get old? So, like, what's the oldest couple or person that you've ever met that's still having sex?
Oh, that would be my great uncle, who's in his 80s, still having sex.
Oh, good. Yeah,
he's having lots of fun at the nursing home. And, I mean, your sex drive goes up and down in certain age brackets. So you can still have sex all the way up into your 90s. I'm assuming people probably still have it when they're in the hundreds, but I haven't met any. But 80s are definitely the people I know that are still having sex. And if anyone did not know, that nursing homes and teenagers have the highest STD rates in the country.
So crazy.
Because they're having that much sex in the nursing homes.
Yeah,
and
I believe that.
The nursing homes don't provide condoms. So that's why the STD rates are so high there.
That's so crazy. Yeah, you guys need to get up in those nursing homes and hand out some condoms.
Right. Oh my gosh, yes. I know some other therapists that have gone there to do presentations. I mean, and we go in there and try to do like sex education presentations, and literally they just sit there and they're like, when are you handing out the condom? Like, they don't even want to hear anything you got to say. They just want the condom.
They're like, we don't have time for this, we're old, just give us the friggin' condoms.
Exactly. Talk about an awkward moment. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, here you go.
That is so
because
funny.
I mean, it's not like you can ask your kids for it,
right?
It's kind of like funny, the cycle of life is that you feel uncomfortable giving the talk to your kids about sex, but at some point when your parents become older and depend on you, and they need to ask you for condoms, you won't give them to them. It's like the cycle of life of uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, my mom says once a man, twice a child, right? So,
right.
It's so funny. Well, Jen, it was such a pleasure talking to you. You gave us such great advice and information. Please tell the listeners where they can reach you so they can get some Silk lubricants.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem.
Yes, thank you to everyone who listened. And if you'd like to reach me or follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at sextherapistjen, Jen, all one word. Or you can email me at sextherapistjen@gmail.com. And that's pretty much how you can get in touch with me if you'd like to book a session or a consultation or book me for any speaking engagement.
Yes.
So, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. You are awesome, girl, and keep spreading love.
Thank you. I definitely will. And don't be afraid to have the uncomfortable conversation.
Yes, thank you.